So I wanted to make a quick point about schematics and the circuit diagram readability, because I find that unlike, for example, coding, in coding there is a huge emphasis on the readability of your code. There's comments and there's certain practices that most people are encouraged to stick by, but with electronic circuits and the diagrams, I find that there's more of a focus on making the diagram smaller and more compact instead of making it readable. And the first time I encountered this was actually with this here, with a simple op amp with gain. You have the op amp here. There's the one input, and oftentimes I find that these are drawn with the two resistors in this configuration right here. So as it is right now, it's more difficult to recognize these resistors as a resistor divider because they are in this L shape. And obviously, if you have more experience, you'll immediately recognize this functional unit, regardless of how these resistors are arranged. But for a beginner like me, the arrangement of these resistors, if you were to arrange them, for example, like this here, it would actually be it's much easier to recognize these two as a divider, and you can see that the voltage here, assuming, let's say these two are the same, the voltage out here is cut in half by this divider and then fed back into this input, which would be the inverting input. So let's take another example. How about differential amplifiers? This is another circuit which I had problems learning because of the way it was drawn. So we have the op amp here, and typically it is drawn with the two resistors like this, and then you would have two inputs here, and then one with the resistor going down to ground, and the other one you would have this here up with the resistor and then going tied to the output. So in this form, it's harder to realize that both these two and these two resistors are both resistor dividers, and so it was much harder for me to recognize that. And obviously, this is if you have enough experience, you're going to recognize this functional unit regardless. But the way I prefer to draw these is with the op amp here, and then the two resistors, the inputs, and the resistors like this. So with this configuration, it's much easier for a beginner to see these two resistor dividers, and you can see the functionality of the unit. Oh, I forgot ground over here. So, I mean, I personally, resistor dividers are one of the spots where I've seen the most problems. I can't think of any other places where schematic readability would be a huge issue, at least with simple circuits like these. But this is just something to keep in mind when you're drawing these. I mean, it's easy for a person with experience to recognize these larger functional units. But if you're decoding these larger functional units for the first time, it helps to be able to easily recognize these smaller functional units inside this larger functional unit. So just something to keep in mind when you're drawing a circuit.